Welcome to the Draw Shop's Get Genius podcast, where we talk to today's business influencers to pick their brain and pull out their genius. It's time to get genius.
Hello, listeners. Time for another Get Genius podcast, and today's guest is Chip Franks. And I just have to say, I so love our guests, and I feel like we've just been flooded with amazing people and interviews, and I'm just constantly blown away. And today we're going to talk to one of my favorite people. A little bit about Chip. He's the supreme commander of the real estate marketplace. What I should say is that he was, because he recently sold this company, and it was a sales and property management company in Texas. But what he's doing today is taking things that are really meaningful to him and really touch his heart, and he's created other businesses. And so he's in that transition now, and he's already rocking it. He is Chief Joe and Bottlewasher for Joe Volunteer. What is Joe Volunteer? It's a benefits corporation with the mission of increasing volunteerism by tenfold across the entire globe. So cool how he came up with the idea. I love it. I love it when people just have a little tiny bubble moment of, oh, that would be really cool, and then they execute, and that's what Chip does. So we talk all about that in our interview. He's also got some other really cool things. One is called The Accountable Me. One is called Help with Agents. I'm not going to tell you and spoil what all of these awesome apps and tools and companies are. We're going to talk about it in the interview. And what we cover is some really, really inspiring, stories and situations that Chip has been in. So different points in his life, dark moments, turning points, health issues, family. There's so many different things. And the thing about Chip is that every single thing has inspired him and brought him closer to doing the things that he really loves and doing them really, really well. And what I love about our guests is that they're not just, none of them are just this overnight success in anything that they've done. They're all so eager to learn and grow. And we'll hear a lot about that with Chip, including his top 3 tips for being an effective person. And oftentimes we talk about effective on the show as in terms of productivity or in terms of getting more time. And he talks about it in a way that's really how you're impacting the world. So for those of you who are in a position where you have those moments where you're like, I really don't feel like what I'm doing, while you might enjoy it a little bit, is not giving and contributing to the world the way that you want, you're going to really get a lot out of this interview and Chip's journey. I'm excited for all the stuff that you'll take from this, including some little tips at the beginning that we've put in our blog posts, little exercises that Chip does that I love, and advice in starting something new that you are not an expert in, but have a passion for and really love, which is more important, I think. And then just really, getting those people and studying the people who have done something similar before. You don't need to take notes because we have it all in the blog. We have it in the show notes, and you can visit chipfranks.com, and we will have the link to that as well. But there really is only one Chip Franks. I'm pretty sure. I've Googled, I've Facebooked, and there's only one Chip Franks. So enjoy the interview. Hi, Chip.
Hello, Summer. It's good to talk with you again.
It is so good to talk to you. There's so much for us to cover today because you're just as you know, one of my favorite people. You just totally you just like embraced life like not a ton of people I know. I know a good amount of people, but not like you do. And like your appreciation for life and the way that you experience life is like totally addictive to just watch and be around. And you're like putting that into new things that you're doing, which is so amazing. And so I would love if we could start this interview with you kind of giving a background of your career and kind of what's closed and what's opening now.
Sure. Well, thank you. And you are also one of my favorite people. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. All right. Well, starting off with the career, just basically right out of college, I graduated at Texas A&M with a degree in marketing. And strangely enough, I just took my daughter on a college tour today. She would be a senior next year, but we homeschooled her, and she's done with high school now. And I don't have a lot of respect for college anymore because I went through it, and I got a degree in marketing and realized it didn't really mean much because I literally graduated without having to write a sales letter or getting someone to call me for something or another. I did sell books door to door for 80 hours a week over the summer, so that was my best education that I got in school. But anyways, directly out of school, I started by being a realtor assistant, and then within 6 months, I started my own real estate business. And I've been doing that, had been doing that successfully for the last 20 years. I sold over 2,000 homes. Personally, I had a team and a property management company. And until last year, we had 30 people in our operation. So it was a pretty good size real estate business. But like you said, what's closing and what's opening, about 2 years ago, almost to the day, I was in a funk and a depression. And it was because I didn't feel like I was living up to my potential. And I had a good business and a wonderful family. And I don't know if you've experienced this, but I was literally waking up at 3 to 4 a.m. every day, just like almost in a cold sweat, thinking, what am I doing with my life? And am I living up to my potential or doing something that's going to matter? And I wasn't. And in that funk, in that depression, it's doubly bad when you realize and you understand that you're blessed and that you have so many things to be grateful for. And at the same time, you feel rotten and terrible and in a funk, and you realize that you shouldn't. I mean, because a lot of people have a whole lot less. And I think that adds to it because you feel guilt over feeling bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's ever happened to you or any of your listeners, but that's where I was at. And I did read a few books, and one of the ones that really helped me and got me out of the funk was Choose Yourself by James Altucher. And in that book, he talks about doing what he calls a daily practice, and that's doing something good every day for you mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And at the time, I was severely overweight, just really didn't want to get out of bed at the time. So for instance, what I started to do physically was just was take a walk every day, 10 to 20 minutes out in the sun and, get myself moving. Emotionally, I stopped saying yes to things that I did not want to do. And I literally got rid of time and emotional vampires in my life.
Yeah.
And, those types of folks where they walk into a room and you just like almost sigh, like, oh.
Yep. And you can feel it. Yeah, you feel it being sucked out of you. Yeah.
Yes, I did that. And then mentally, and we'll talk about this because I think if folks are listening to this and they're in a funk, professionally, this is the greatest thing I did was I did an idea list every day. And what that is you come up with a theme or a topic, say the 20 different books that you could write that would change the world. And you brainstorm as many as you can, and you use your brain like a muscle until it just gets tired, weary, and when you do that for a while, it's just like a muscle in that you build it up, and over time you get to be an idea machine, and ideas just come super quick to you, and it's really cool because you're never at a loss of what to do next if you're an idea machine. And that's something that helped out a lot. And that's what started Joe Volunteer, and it started a few other businesses that I have going right now, because that led to me eventually selling my business, because I realized I was not happy selling real estate, even though it was lucrative for us. It just, I didn't, and I don't mean this to sound wrong or bad to other agents, but I didn't want to die just being a real estate broker, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was meant to do more with my life, and that there was a higher calling, and that I was given a lot of potential that I was not living up to. And those idealists and different things with that got me involved in doing Joe Volunteer. Because backtracking, I guess the other thing that I did was a spiritual practice, and that is writing in a gratitude journal every day, and then doing a kind act for another human being every day. And yeah, and that alone, just that spiritual practice of doing something kind for another human being, was far and away the best thing that got me out of the funk.
It's so true.
Yeah. And it's, I think I'm a person of faith, and I believe that God has set us up in a way to where it is impossible to help someone else feel better without feeling better yourself.
Yep.
And that is just a fantastic and incredible quirk of humanity that is just awesome. And I remember being in the funk, being in a depression, literally not wanting to get out of bed in the morning, thinking to myself with this horrible self-talk that, what difference are you going to make today? And then thinking about the kind act and thinking, well, I'm going to do something good for at least one person today. And I just got out of bed, and that became kind of a mantra, and I still do it to this day, that daily practice of the idealists and doing a kind act. And anyhow, I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling on here, but the kind act, one of the things that I did was we did hug stations at nursing homes with my children, and I noticed there that there weren't a lot of volunteers, and there were a lot of lonely people. And one day I was listening to the I Love Marketing podcast with our mutual friend, Joe Polish.
Yeah.
And he talked about being in a nursing home and at a gratitude dinner. And it was a wonderful experience, except for the people that weren't involved in it. And he noticed a man in the back in particular that was extremely lonely. And Joe said he got emotional just looking at the guys because he could see how lonely this guy was. And he had the thought, and he said, you know what, we don't have a supply problem. We have lots of people that would want to come and talk to this man, help out and volunteer and just, do a kind act for another human being. But what we have is a distribution problem. And he said on his podcast, wouldn't it be great if there was like an Uber, but an Uber for volunteers? And if anyone wants to work with me on this, come at me and let me know what you'd like to do. Don't just give me ideas, because I have lots of ideas, but make sure you have things together, and let's see if we can work on this. And I remember the exact spot I was when I was driving down the road listening to that, because of my experience in the nursing homes. And that was just like a bolt of lightning from God that said, you need to do this. And I heard that, and I went home and I did a business plan and created the website and did it all in less than 2 weeks and sent it to Joe. And when he got that, he said, hey, can you come out tonight or tomorrow morning to talk about this? And I came out that night, and the next morning I met him in person for the first time. That's actually the day I met you for the first time.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. And we decided to work on Joe Volunteer together. And that's the movement for kindness. And we help people and organizations spread kindness throughout the world, and mainly through an app that we already have done and that we are modifying right now. And I guess we'll talk about this a little bit later, but I did sell the real estate business. I closed on that last month, or actually I guess a month and a half ago now, and decided to devote full time to Joe Volunteer, and then also a few other entrepreneurial endeavors that I'm excited about. The Accountable Me, which holds entrepreneurs accountable. to doing the things that they committed to, which is kind of cool. It's a daily calling service. And another one called helpwithagents.com. And because of my background with a real estate broker, this is like an Airbnb for realtors, which introduces the concept of economics to it. So you can go to our site and find agents right now just in our area, but we plan on taking it nationwide, hopefully in the next few years. And you can see which agents are available and also what they charge for their services.
Oh, that's so cool.
Along with what they do. Yeah. So real estate, as you know, if you've sold a house or bought a house, there's a 6% cartel going on,
right.
which, and this actually introduces a concept where agents don't have to advertise for the business. They just are on our site and they get calls that say, hey, we see what you do. We see what you charge. Come and list us or help us purchase a house. And they don't have to spend extra money on it, but the consumer can save over what they normally charge, what the agents normally charge. So that's the thought process behind that. So I have those businesses, Joe Volunteer, and then also I'm doing a book now called Daddy's Advice Book. And that is the advice to my children as they turn into adults. And it's life advice that everyone should know as an adult. And literally it's me writing to my children with all the love in my heart and wanting them to do the best that they can in life and giving them advice on everything from whether or not to go to college, and if they do go to college, what they need to do with it, how to get a job, the power of shadowing, how to plan their days, gosh, I mean, it's got over 89 pieces of advice on it of different ways to make their life better that are divided into body, mind, heart, and soul pieces of advice for them.
That's beautiful. I love that.
And that's where I'm at now. And I'm sorry, I've been been talking a long time, but please,
that's why you're here.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about a few things. One is that, there's whether we have entrepreneurs that are listening, whether they're in a position where they're selling a company, they are transitioning into something new, or kind of like Eric and I, where your company is pretty much self-managed and you have that time and more freedom to start some other businesses that really, like you said, have a close place to your heart. It's scary though, at least, you know what I mean? Because you're, especially for you, I mean, you're 20 years doing real estate and now you're doing these things that are, vastly different. What's that journey been like? Because now you're thrown into, finding the right development teams for the app and for the website and for these different tools and now getting into publishing. What's that journey been like?
Well, I can tell you that it's been scary, and it's strange because when you think about it, and we're members of Archangel, and I just learned about the hero's journey. Believe it or not, I never really studied Joseph Campbell or heard about that until Archangel of last year, and it sounds romantic to be able to sell your business and to start on something new, and it is completely different when you actually do it. And you go on your hero's journey and face the demons and the dragons. And when I sold the business, I wanted to do it for a while, and it took several months to get the right buyer and to come to terms on it and to close on it. And when it was done, I can tell you, as much as I wanted to sell it, I went into a post-sell funk. And I think that most people, if they've been in a business for a while, it becomes a part of them. It's almost like a family member in a way. And for me, selling it, and I talked with a few friends about this that have sold businesses, and they counseled me and helped me out because I didn't understand why I would be in a funk after finally accomplishing something that I'd set out to do for a while. And it's interesting. I'm actually in my real estate office now. It's a 4,000 square foot office, and we used to have people running around everywhere and phones going off, and now it's a little bit like a tomb. It's just me and one assistant who happens to be my mom, and it's just us in all of this space, and it's just different. And what one of my friends told me is that when you do something and you do it well, you get dopamine hits all day. And I had a lot of people reporting to me and people that I employed or whatever. And it's kind of nice if you could say, do this and then it's done or whatnot. And all of a sudden, when that goes away, there's a void there, and you don't get the dopamine hit every day of doing something you do well. And my friend told me, he said, you know what, for me, it lasted for about a month and a half, and then I got out of my funk and was happy as ever. And that is that's about where I'm at right now, and I'm actually happy. I probably came out of it just a few weeks earlier than he did, but it was a definite shock to the system to do that. And now you're doing something completely different. It's really weird because there's no net in this. You're just kind of jumping into the void, and everything that I do as far as the app or creating a business or hiring new people to work with the new companies, it's something I haven't done before, and it's exciting. It's exhilarating to learn as you go along, and I'm thrilled by it. It's actually fun to wake up every day and to work on Joe Volunteer and in the companies, and I enjoy it tremendously. And I feel like I'm living up to more of my potential because I'm learning, and every day is somewhat outside of my comfort zone. So that's a lot of fun.
What kind of advice or advisors have you like kind of assigned to help you with all of this? Because they're all different, apps and different businesses. And so there's different, teams that you have to build, or different people that are going to help you with each individual one. How have you managed that?
Well, a few things. And one is, with each one, it's a practice that I talk about in my book and I tell my girls all about. And Tony Robbins does it, and he calls it modeling. And I've always called it shadowing. And that is finding someone that's doing what you want to do and basically shadowing them and seeing what their day-to-day is like, what their thought process is, how they're working with it. And for my daughters, for instance, I'm telling them to do that for potential careers so they can decide if it's something that they like before they invest 4 or 5 years of college in and decide, in week 2 that they hate the profession that they're in, what have you. But I'm able to do that with the accountability company, with the real estate company. The real estate company and the accountability company, I actually learned from Dan Martell. He has an idea to exit program, and I went and studied that, and it was outstanding. I think he's built and successfully exited 5 different companies, and he's built a really good process of how to do it and what happened with it. So that was part of the learning curve and being able to do that and how to build a new business based online.
I love that.
Yeah, so it's just a lot of fun to learn all of these things. And as far as what you said to help other people is just to find people that are doing what they're doing. And I think you know this, but at the higher level of things, people are usually pretty generous with letting you know what they've done as long as you approach it right. You don't go up and say, hey, will you mentor me for a year,
right,
and get absolutely nothing out of it. But if you do it the right way, add value to what they're doing, and you're very respectful of their time, and give them something of value in that you're changing the world or you're helping something and letting them be a part of that and showing them that you're taking their advice and doing something positive with it, then people are generally really giving and helping you to learn how to do things.
Yeah, it's so true. So I'd love to talk about, because the things that you're doing are so, meaningful to you, I would love to talk about, who inspires you. And I say that because I know for certain that your children inspire you a ton.
Absolutely.
And I love seeing their pictures, their stories, and I notice that you learn so much from them and their experiences and what they've brought to you. And I'd love to talk about them.
Sure. They're wonderful. that was part of our part of what we did this last year that also changed everything. Is we pulled our girls, my 17-year-old now and 13-year-old, out of school and homeschooled them starting last year. And yeah, I've learned a lot from them, learned a lot with them. And yeah, they are definitely a motivation, and they keep me going. And most parents know this, but they are, they say when a child is born that your heart is now walking around outside of your body. And that's just very true.
So true.
But yeah, but we can talk about them and anything you'd like to know. And of course, you know about the amazing Alec as well. And he's the, yeah.
Yes. So please talk about the amazing Alec, because this was such a beautiful surprise in your life. And I love when you tell the story of, from the moment you found out, Laura was pregnant all the way up until, today with Alec. And I love seeing his face and the, just the happiness that he brings to all of you, the humor too.
He is awesome. He is a fountain of joy. And I don't think I've mentioned it on this podcast, but he was born with Down syndrome. And it's something we didn't know prior to him being born, and it wouldn't have made a difference. We did not get an amniocentesis for that reason, because we knew it wouldn't make a difference. But when he was born, there was a huge surprise that he had Down syndrome. And I can talk about it now because it's been wonderful and it's been a blessing in our life. And he's just so happy, and joy flows from him. And he's just the most intuitive human being I've ever known. He can sense good and evil. He reaches out to people. I've seen him literally. I remember this very well. We were at the Magic Kingdom in Disney World, and a man was standing behind us in line. And Alec just looked over at him and kind of launched out of my arms and hugged this man just out of the blue, out of nowhere. And the man just started crying and said he needed that. I mean, it's just, and Alec just understands that, and he knows it intuitively. He's 5 years old now. But, getting back to his birth, that was definitely a shock. And I can tell you it's probably the darkest time of my life, because he also came along with several health challenges, and he had a very severe surgery within his first 2 weeks of life, because he had something called Hirschsprung's disease, which essentially means you can't poop. Oh. And about 30 years ago, that would have been fatal. And about maybe another 10 years ago, it would have meant that he would have had to have a colostomy bag on the outside of his body carried around for his entire life. And just a few years prior to him being born, they pioneered a surgery where they pulled the intestines out of his body, fixed the intestines, and put them back in. They cut out the part of the intestine that's not functioning, that's not working. And it just so happened that in Temple, Texas, in our little 40,000 population town here, with the world-class hospital, that the surgeon had studied under the man that pioneered the surgery. And they fixed him up with that, and glad to say he poops just fine now. But
that's amazing.
And he had 7 surgeries in his first 6 months of life. And just there's never more of a helpless feeling than if something is wrong with your child and you're not able to fix it. And I guess, at the time, that was a super hard lesson to go through, just with him being a surprise and thinking, why did this happen to us, and what will his life be like? And it was just a time of fear and darkness. And he broke through that. I mean, just being around him, even as an infant, as just a little baby, he was so happy and so alert and just knew what was going on. And he is literally a ray of light from God in everything he does now.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's been wonderful. And his sisters have been just as caring and supportive and wonderful as they can be. And they fight over who he's going to live with when he becomes older. So, and I don't know if there's anything that can make a parent happier than for their kids to be just in love with each other. And they are.
It's so close.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So wonderful and such an inspiration as well. It's such an example of, taking a challenge that's been thrown at you, but seeing the opportunity out of it, and how much beauty and love it's brought to you and your family, and changed your perspective on things, which is what I have seen personally, with you, which is so amazing.
Well, thank you. And this may sound kind of corny, but my mother had mentioned this on Facebook, just talking with him, and she says that he expanded all of our hearts.
Yeah.
And he did. He increased our capacity to love, and everything in life is better because of that. And it's just a wonderful thing. I get all emotional when I talk about the boy, because he's just so wonderful, and has been, just such a blessing in life. And just to think, people would think that having a child with special needs would be a burden, and it is so much the opposite, in that he increases the capabilities and the care of everyone around him.
Yeah.
And we've all become better people, and he's become an energy in our life. And Down syndrome it's not a burden. It's not an illness. It is love and hugs and unconditional joy and smiles and just unmitigated happiness. I mean, he's just wonderful. So I could probably talk about the little guy all day, but he's been wonderful. And if anyone is curious about that, two things are coming from that. One is we have a Facebook page, The Amazing Alec. That's ALEC. So if you ever want to see what's going on with him or see videos of him, I promise. I'm biased anyways, but the videos are worthwhile. If you're having a bad day, put on a video of that boy, and he will make you feel better.
Yep, yeah. I've seen those videos. I love them.
Yep. Well, thank you. And we're doing. We have a website that I've purchased and are starting to build on. It's called blessedbydownsyndrome.com.
Oh, okay.
And I can tell you that, but I experienced a time here recently where one of my friends was about to have a child, and they got the prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome. And the doctor said, we have bad news, horrible news. Your child has Down syndrome, and here are the termination options. And literally, that's how they delivered this life-changing bit of news. And we're going to change that, and we're going to the website is specifically for people that just get the diagnosis of Down syndrome and are scared and are worried and don't know what's going to happen in life, and worry about what's going to happen with their children. And we're going to have stories upon stories and videos and pictures of a beautiful life with an extra chromosome. And
thank you for doing that. Thank you for doing that, honestly. And that's what's so wonderful about the things that you're doing, is taking, something that's not out there, probably that, some people aren't really thinking about, like with Joe Volunteer or with Help with Agents, those type things that people aren't really thinking about, but you're somehow getting all inspired with these ideas with the people that are around you. And instead of just coming up with the idea, you're actually executing on them, which is so amazing, despite maybe it not being your complete expertise at the time, like with Joe Volunteer, just saying, what, that's okay. I'm going to find the people to help me do it. And we're going to make this happen. One of the things I just so appreciate about you is the way that you take things that happen in life, and immediately, like, it's a window opening and it's an opportunity. And recently I saw you very briefly at a conference that we were at, and then I hadn't seen you. I left. You had disappeared to go rest. You'd had the flu at the time, and something pretty major happened. I ended up finding out on Facebook, but I would love for you to tell that story, because it was another example of, something really obviously life-changing and scary that happened. And just, man, the way that you turned it around, not even 24 hours later, like, hearing from you and just going like, oh my gosh, this guy's amazing.
Well, thank you. What you're talking about was a stroke that I had, and it was January 26th, 2017. I will remember that date forever. And I had a stroke while at a business conference, and it's very weird. And we'll probably talk about this, but it's kind of a fluke. The doctors had talked about that and said it shouldn't have happened. All of my blood counts, my cholesterol, my blood sugar, my heart, everything is not just good, but an optimal operating. So it can happen to anybody. But it happened coming back from lunch, and I was talking with a good friend of mine, Josh Leslie, and at the time I was trying to ask which speakers had gone already that I had missed, and I couldn't get the word speaker out of my mouth. And it was very, very weird, because it's very vivid in my mind exactly how it happened. And some people say they never remember a stroke happening, but I could remember it in vivid slow motion detail. And I could not speak. I knew the words that I wanted to get across to Josh, and nothing was coming out. It was just gibberish, basically. And he was looking at me, and I could see the concern in his face, like, what's going on? And I wanted to react to it and say, hey, don't worry about this. Everything's okay. I'll get this. And he just started reassuring me, saying it's okay. It's all right. Let's have a seat. And he went and sat me down, curiously enough, next to your place. We were supposed to be neighbors that day. And he had gone and gotten the people that were running the events, and they came outside with two world-class doctors, and they did a stroke test on me immediately, a cognitive test. And apparently I failed tremendously. I didn't know that at the time, but they were telling me to follow the lights on the test. Don't move your head and follow the lights. And I didn't think I was moving my head following it, but I was, apparently. So they had known right away that I'd had a stroke, and it's a ischemic stroke, and it affected the language part of my brain, meaning I could formulate thoughts, but I couldn't articulate any of the thoughts. And my sister happens to be a speech pathologist, and she counsels and does therapy for stroke victims all of the time. And she had told me that it wouldn't matter whether I was speaking it or trying to type it or write it, I would not be able to communicate what I was saying. And that's just really strange when your body just doesn't perform. It just gives up on you, basically. And that had happened. And the doctors, they had the paramedics come, and they took me to the hospital, and I was in the hospital less than 30 minutes after it had happened. And later that night in the hospital, they found out it was not a brain bleed, it was a blockage. And I very distinctly remember now, but I could not remember the names of any of my friends, which is really weird. And I could see their face clearly. I knew who they were, but I just wasn't able to remember their names. And that was just kind of strange. And it felt like my body and my brain had kind of betrayed me. But I stayed in the hospital for the next 3 days and recovered from my stroke almost completely by the next day, which is really good. And actually the doctors, because I'd recovered pretty quick at the convention center, the doctors didn't think that I had a stroke. They thought maybe it was just severe flu or dehydration, which I didn't think it was that, because I drink a gallon of water a day.
Yeah.
But they did the MRI and found that I did indeed have a stroke. And luckily enough, I did. luckily enough with that, I mean, I recovered fast, and it could have been a whole lot worse, but I learned a lot of different lessons from it. And I did a post on Facebook that went somewhat viral.
Yeah.
And it's just the 10 things that I'd learned from having a stroke at 44 years of age, including things like it can happen to anybody, and your life can change in an instant, and you have to be prepared for that. That it focuses your priorities very, very fast, and that there's a big difference between liking something on Facebook, and sending a comment saying, love and prayers coming to you. And I had over 480 comments, I think, on my initial, I had a stroke, guys.
Yeah.
Post on Facebook. And out of that, there was just a precious handful of people that actually called or did a message, and only had 2 people visit me in the hospital. So just one of the things that I learned, and I'm trying to take this with me in my life, is to actually reach out and do something for someone, and not just say, hey, if I can do anything, call me, because that puts the burden on the person you're trying to help, versus just doing something proactively to go out and help them.
Right.
So that's something. And then another thing, I was really happy because I'd already started Daddy's advice book, but I remember very distinctly being carried off in the stretcher, and just being thankful that I'd left something for my kids to remember me by, if I didn't make it out, or just so they would have some of my wisdom, or just at least something that said, I'm here, and this is what I can do to help you, even if I'm not with you physically.
Right.
And if someone's hearing this or thinking about it, and you do have kids, I would encourage you to keep journals, or to maybe film videos of different pieces of life advice for them, to let them know what you think about things. And, I'm glad that I had that, and I'm doing that. And that's actually, that's led to me working a lot more on the book, and just getting it done, and giving them all of the pieces of advice that I wish that I had had growing up, and that they need to know as they're adults, going into life.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one of the, from this experience, is there something like in your daily life that has totally changed now, or that you look at differently from that? Because that's a pretty big moment to think, if you're thinking, I'm so glad I left them this, you're thinking in your mind, there's a chance I might not be back. Yeah.
And you know what? It's strange, because I think it puts some urgency to this, but, I think most people who would listen to a podcast like this have read the article about the hospice nurse that said the 5 biggest regrets of the dying. And the number one regret of people dying is, I wish I would have lived a life that was true to me. Mm-hmm. And that really came home to roost, because time is finite, and it really made me come to grips with my mortality. And none of us ever think about that on a day-to-day basis. We're thinking about the emails and the phone that's ringing, or getting things done, or hiring the right person, doing personality tests, whatever. You're thinking about all the things that fill up your day, without thinking of, am I doing something that actually makes a difference? Did someone breathe easier on this earth because I was here?
Right.
And it definitely made me want to speed up what I was doing, and I had not finished selling the business by then, but that put a fire in me to do that, and to basically to follow my dream, and to do the things that I feel like I was put on earth to do.
There's a lot of entrepreneurs, if you ask them tips, like, share with me like 3 pieces of advice for being more effective, or something, that kind of like makes them more productive. And, a lot of times it comes down to a cool app, which is great. Or it's, here's how I get to inbox zero. Here's how I do this. Here's how I, manage my time. But I know, because just from having spoken to you before about these type things, you have a different take on being effective. And so like if you were to give us 3 tips right now that are your top tips, I know that they're going to be different than that. So I'd love for you to share those because I know that it's going to be a little bit more meaningful.
You know what? It's really funny, Summer, is part of what I'm doing with the business, The Accountable Me, is we are doing a podcast called Effective.
Oh, really?
That's exactly what we're doing. Me and Dr. Kayvon are doing that together. We're co-owners of the business, and that's it. It's effectiveness in business and in life. And people that say there's one and then the other, the business life and the personal life, I don't think quite get it, because it's all intertwined and you are one person. But with that said, the biggest thing I would say first, and this sounds really broad and general, but this is the absolute best thing that you can do in life, I think, and that is make sure you're fighting the right war. And what you're talking about with the emails and the different the apps that you're using, those are all tactics, and they might be in a strategy to be a lot more productive, so you can have more time with your kids, for instance. That's a strategy,
right,
of doing an 80-20, whatever, just focusing on the 20% that makes a difference. And the strategy and the tactics are only good if you're fighting the right war. And that goes to what I was saying earlier, is trying your best to figure out what you're here on earth to do. And for me, that wasn't selling a ton of houses every year. And that's going out and making a difference for other people, and hopefully letting them know what spectacular creations of God that they are, and how much potential they have, and that they should love themselves and that they deserve the best things in life. So the first thing is making sure you're fighting the right war. And the next thing actually ties into just what I just mentioned, and that is love yourself like your life depends on it. And that is a very big concept. And one of the books that I read that was recommended in Choose Yourself is Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It by Kamal Ravikant. And it's just a little book. It's 50 to 60 pages, but it talks about how most people, and I would say the majority of people out there, as much as they love others and as much as they love their families, they are really hard on themselves and don't generally like the person that they see in the mirror. And that was certainly me for a very long time. That's something that I had to work on. And what's so important about that, and what makes you be effective when you do that, is that if you love yourself enough, then you're going to want to do the self-improvement, and you're going to want to do more in life, something that affects other people and helps other people. And you're going to be able to love other people completely and unconditionally in a way that they deserve, because it's coming from a place where you love yourself, and not just conceited type, hey, I'm the greatest it's ever been, but realize that you are a gigantic, huge blessing of potential that can affect the world and can change things and make life better for other people. And I think once you have that healthy self-love, the rest of life gets a lot easier and a lot better. So that's probably the second piece that I do. And then the third piece, and I know all of these are just gigantic generalities, but the third piece I would say is self-development, and having some type of program where you are getting better. And I talk about the University on Wheels. I think I heard that with Zig Ziglar, but listening to podcasts like this and reading the right books and getting around the right people, the whole five, you're the average of the five people around you. And what Thoreau said is, I know of no more encouraging fact than the ability of mankind to elevate his life through conscious endeavor. And he also mentioned about the mass of men leading lives of quiet desperation. And I think that quiet desperation is born of people that don't love themselves enough to want to improve and change their lot in life. And I think that you have to have some kind of self-improvement program, or just the wiring that you want to get better and you want to be better.
Right.
And I'm a big Jim Rohn fan, and he says, don't go into a job wondering what you get from it. You go into a job or a position or learning or doing something different from what you for what you become of doing it. And the things that you learn and the person you become in the pursuit of that. So self-development would be the third. So fighting the right war, extreme self-love, and the last one would be a self-development program.
Those are awesome, and in that order too. I really love those. Those are great. Thank you so much. We've talked about so many different things here. So many really inspiring things. Some really great takeaways. I mean, there's so much here, and there's so much that you are doing, and I want people to be able to keep up with you and all the things that you're doing. With Joe Volunteer, with Accountable Me, Help with Agents. It's just all these, Blessed by Down Syndrome, and of course the amazing Alec. And can we find all of this at chipfranks.com? Well, is that one easy place to go to keep up with everything?
Yes, chipfranks.com. And of course, you can look me up on Facebook as well. I believe I'm the only Chip Franks on Facebook still. All
right, awesome. And we'll have a link to that for sure on our show notes. This is awesome, Chip.
So, Summer, it's always incredible to talk to you. Thank you. And yeah, I feel like I just talked a little bit too much, but I'm hoping some folks can get some good nuggets out of that.
There's amazing nuggets out of here. I mean, there's so many good things. I'm just like looking back at things that I write down, like the modeling, the shadowing, the ideation, everything. There's just so many great things. So, and we'll have all of that listed out in our blog, so you will not miss any of it. Thank you, Chip, so much.
By the way, is incredible. You are a very gifted writer. I love reading what you have.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Chip, thank you so much, and I'm sure I'm going to be seeing you in person soon.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Summer. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's Get Genius. You can learn more about The Draw Shop at www.thedrawshop.com, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Your home for kick-butt custom whiteboard marketing videos. Your ideas come to life. Thanks for listening. Please share, comment, and make any suggestions for future genius guests.